Hello, my name is Ella, and our group chose to do the presentation on problem solving. For my segment on our problem solving presentation, I chose to do the research method. The definition of research is the systematic investigation into and the study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. Being in a situation, possibly at work or school, when a problem arises can be very tricky to handle without making the situation worse. To know how to solve a problem, you have to understand it fully, therefore making research the perfect problem-solving tool for you. Gaining new information about the topic can shed light on the issue, and it can become an educational moment to some, or instead of it becoming an out-of-hand problem. Sometimes someone just does not know enough about the topic, but being able to research it to better understand it helps to see where the other person is coming from using facts. This type of problem solving would be best for work colleagues, as everyone there is a little bit older and they will most likely be mature enough to admit when they are wrong and when shown the proper facts. This would not be as effective if it were in a high school or middle school because not all kids are mature enough to admit that they are wrong even when they are shown the facts, which things like that can always be aggravating and cause the situation to get worse. Sometimes when a problem comes up, it's hard to remember that it's you versus your team. Or no, your team versus the problem, not your team versus you. The research method can help with that because it isn't an attacking method. It is these are the facts, therefore this is how it is. If it is certainly the answer, then there's no room for a problem because it was solved by a simple Google question. Using the research method can provide a happy and unproblematic working space between colleagues because they know how to properly handle their issues. Teaching children this type of technique at a younger age can help improve their maturity level, and it can help them understand the matter of a subject, such as, why did what I say make this person angry? And leading them to ask, what can I do logically to diffuse the situation? This method, when taught to younger children, can enable them to engage continuously in the classroom. It can keep them motivated to learn inside and outside the classroom. So when issues do come up in their classroom, it's easy to be diffused because they know the facts. A good activity for this method would be a reverse pyramid. This activity requires you to have everyone stand in a pyramid shape horizontally. Then ask them to flip the bottom level of the pyramid using only 3 people. This activity helps with adaptability and collaboration. These 2 qualities help majorly with the research method because it shows that you are able to adapt to a new thought or mindset when show how the end result will turn out. The collaboration of this exercise will help with communication skills and teamwork, which is important to be reminded of. A few disadvantages of this method would be that when taught to children at a younger age, it can lead to worse test scores. Because a student has been taught how to solve an issue using the research method, they might begin to rely on researching answers. And if this problem continues and is not taken care of, it can lead a child to cheating on tests and not studying effectively. Another disadvantage of this method is that if someone is not taught how to research properly, they could be getting incorrect information, which can lead to arrogance and closed-mindedness. When students take tests that include true, false, and multiple choice questions, it enforces the fact that there's always one right answer. That can make a student stressed out and more likely to cheat on the test because those type of questions are enforcing the research method. So making a few short answer questions and tests can help take the pressure off of the right and the wrong thing. Now Abby will discuss another method.
Hi, my name is Abby Johnson, and I chose the method of mediation when it comes to problem solving. So the goal of problem-solving mediation is to help the parties come to a general agreement on a specific dispute. The mediator is an impartial third party who is a good active listener, who is empathetic, which means they show an ability to understand and share the feelings of others, and they have a strong, persuasive personality. Now, really fast, I'm going to go over the conflict resolution outcomes. So the first outcome is a lose-lose situation. Now, this is when both parties are unsatisfied with the outcome that is presented. and both parties lose the original goal that they had in mind and don't attain what they're wanting. So both of them are probably going to be pretty resentful by the end of the whole situation and outcome. The second outcome is a win-lose situation, and that is where one party wins at the other party's expense. The latter party is dissatisfied and will more than likely be angry or resentful to the first party who actually won the situation, so to speak, such as if my classmates Caitlin and Cassidy were in an argument and we were able to have a mediator, and so Caitlin won, so to speak, and Cassidy didn't. Cassidy might be more resentful towards Caitlin in further aspects of life and such like that. And the final outcome is a win-win situation, which both parties are satisfied with the outcome, and the parties are able to achieve what they originally wanted to begin with. So in my previous example, Caitlin and Cassidy would be happy with each other and would more than likely be able to be happy with each other in further life events. So some mediation characteristics include voluntary participation. So every person in this situation has to agree and volunteer to do this, such as, again, I'm going to use Cassie and Caitlin, if that's all right. So if I was their mediator, Cassie and Caitlin would have to both agree that, hey, we want to solve this problem, we want to get it fixed, and so they would have to voluntarily be there, as well as a face-to-face interaction between the two parties. So Cassie and Caitlin have to sit down and talk and discuss it face-to-face, not even over like a mediated such as FaceTime or Zoom or anything like that. I would have to sit down face-to-face and discuss it. And they have to have an unbiased third party that will not make the decision for them, but will help them come to a decision that is best for all involved, and which will be ideally a win-win situation, but that may not always be the case in some aspects. Another characteristic is equal opportunities for each party to explain their side of the situation without interruption and listening from both the mediator and the other party. So basically, just to break that down, if Caitlin was upset that Cassidy used her curling iron, and she was just like, I'm just fed up with Cassidy right now, it's just terrible. Caitlin would be able to tell her side of the story without Cassidy intervening and jumping in. And I, as the mediator, would have to refrain from talking as well and listen to her side of the story before we heard Cassidy's side, and so on and so forth. And all the facts and information need to be presented at the beginning. So what happened, where it happened, and such like that, to help the mediator kind of understand, what's going on in that situation. So the mediation process itself. So you start laying out the ground rules in the very beginning. So the mediator would sit there and be like, look, this is what we're going to do, like I explained earlier, that you're going to sit down and you're going to listen and you're not going to talk while Cassie's talking. And the same thing for Caitlin. Y'all each get your own chance to talk, and I'm going to help you try to figure out and work out what y'all are feeling and thinking in that aspect. The next process is to relay the conflict and allow each party, like I said, to speak their side of the story uninterrupted. Next is to define the agreements and disputes. So you might have an aspect where, hey, yeah, you're right in this area. You have the right to feel angry and upset that Cassidy stole your curling iron, but the way you acted out might not have been the best way. So there's agreements and disputes that you can talk about as well, and dissect each party's story and try to help everyone in the situation understand how the other person is feeling in that particular moment. And also, you need to make sure the parties remain calm during all of this. That's a really big thing. So if Caitlin just found out something new or that really just made her upset and she started escalating really quickly, you got to make sure you nip that in the bud to begin with. Otherwise, the situation could get out of hand very quickly. The next thing is you suggest options for an agreement. As I stated previously, the mediator would not and does not and should not make the final decision. They only provide options for the party to see for the outcomes. So you have different, say, well, maybe Caitlin could buy her own curling iron, or maybe y'all can find a way to share it, maybe ask next time, just certain situations like that. And like I said in the beginning, the main goal is to have a win-win situation. But again, that might not always be the case. There might have to be a win-lose situation in some aspects. It just depends on the disputes at the current time. And make sure the outcomes are realistic as well. So if Caitlin was just like, I think Cassidy owes me $100 because she stole my curling iron. I really don't like that. You see, that might be a bit unrealistic. Or you hurt my feelings. I think you owe me money, or you owe me something for this. Like, that's a bit unrealistic when it comes to finding a common solution to this problem. And mediators must also make sure that they don't take sides or come across as being unfair in the discussion, because then it might come across as you're being biased, and you're not going to be taken seriously the next time someone has a dispute and asks for your opinion on such matters. So the next method that is going to be discussed by our group is by Caitlin. So.
Hey y'all, I'm Caitlin. So the method that I chose was communication. So communication is really an important method of problem solving. It's used to identify problems as well as resolve problems within your group. So the definition of communication is the imparting or exchanging of information. So when it comes to communication, there's 3 different types that you can choose from, and the first one is nonverbal communication. So this really is just your facial expressions and your body gestures that you use while you're trying to solve a problem. So for example, if you were to approach a problem within your particular group with a mad facial expression or an aggressive body gesture, it is likely that the problem would escalate to a much worse place. However, if you were to approach that same problem with a neutral facial expression and maybe some welcoming body gestures or some forgiving body gestures, it's more likely that your problem would be resolved in a quicker manner. Another type of communication is voice communication, which is ultimately just your tone. So for example, if you approach a situation having an angry tone with somebody, then the problem will definitely escalate worse. I know I've been in situations that have been approached angrily and they haven't always turned out great. However, if you were to use a more calm tone, it's more likely that you would be able to solve your problem in an easier way. And the third type of communication is data communication, which is the actual meaning of words. So it's important that everybody in your group understands this type of communication. Oftentimes in an argument or a disagreement, people perceive things that are said in an entirely different way than somebody may mean them to actually be. And it's important to understand each way, including the actual meaning of something, before you get angry with a person. Understanding this can save people from really unnecessary arguments. I know I've been in arguments with my friends before, and they've said something to me the wrong way, and I essentially just took it the complete wrong way than I should have, and it escalated things further, which granted we were able to communicate properly and solve it, but it wasn't that good in the beginning. So some helpful tips when communicating within your group. Listening to understand is very important. Really just digging into whoever you're in a conflict with, into their mind, and understanding where they're coming from about a particular situation can get you a long way. Respecting other people's feelings is also equally as important. Seriously reflecting on what you've heard from the other group members before you take further action is also very, very important. Describing how you personally feel in an argument is also very important, because if you want to resolve something, then everyone needs to know how everybody else feels. And the most important is probably avoiding demanding for a change, which it's never right to put all the blame on one person, because essentially in a group there's probably things that each person does that makes people angry and upset. So it's important to not just put all the blame on one singular person. So like I said, communication is very, very important when solving a problem. I don't think that it's possible to solve a problem without communication, essentially. So Addie's going to tell you a little bit about another solution or another way that you can problem solve.
Hi, like she said, my name is Addie Grace Nelson, and the topic that I picked for the problem solving, course we did is analysis, which I always thought of analysis mostly as something to do with English, literature, anything except for situations, which doesn't make any sense, but hey. One thing I think is really important is that when you analyze a situation, you look at every aspect of it. Like everyone has been saying, that you have to take into consideration all the known aspects and then make a decision based on that. So you have to do your research in a way, you have to communicate, and you definitely need to, not necessarily mediate like Abby was talking about, but try to be the reasonable one. If everyone did that, problems would go a lot smoother and there wouldn't be near as many of them. But there's an old saying that there are two sides to every story, much like coins. And that's so true. Before you make a decision of any sort, you should look at all of the other options and all the other ways that they could have been interpreted. Because everyone has a different view of the world and they have a different lens which they see it. So it's very important that you consider this before you make a decision. You should also take a moment to analyze all the potential solutions, because there's usually no one right answer. There's always lots of different options and ways you can handle things or things could go. And you need to look at the solution that provides the greatest positive impact with the smallest negative impact. That way everyone in the group benefits, everyone in the situation benefits from the decision that's made. And there are some really easy ways to do this. You don't always have to sit down and make a pro and con list, although that's what I usually do. You can ask yourself the 5 why questions. So basically, when you do that, you go through the situation and you ask why, kind of like a little kid. So why did this happen? Why do I feel the way that I feel? What makes me feel that way? Why do I feel that? And then how do I keep that from happening again? How do I prevent that? What can I have done instead? And that's a super easy way to do it that you can integrate into daily life without a problem. Another good thing to think about is the 80-20 rule, which you might have heard. But basically, 20% of your actions cause 80% of your problems. So if you keep having the same problem over and over again, you should look at, what happens before this problem occurs and how you can deal with that. Sorry, guys, I'm in a really sketchy spot, so whatever. But look for the things that are causing you various problems. Is it an action that you display? Is it an issue with your life? What can you do to change it? For example, say you're in a class and your grades are failing because you're stressed out and you're working extra shifts at work because you're poor, because you're in college, you're sick, you're shocked to go to class. Of those, which is the most likely to cause you to have, which one the biggest effect on your grades? Probably going to class. It's also an easy thing to fix. But just easy little things like that, if you look at what's going on, it makes it a whole lot easier to solve the problem. But there are lots of other options. And Cassidy is fixing to tell you about another one.
Hey guys, my name is Cassidy Patterson, and I'll be discussing how active listening skills are very viable when dealing with problem solving. Active listening is the ability to focus completely on a speaker, understand their message, comprehend the information, and respond thoughtfully. Active listening is divided into 4 separate parts, which are attending, paraphrasing, reflecting, and clarifying. Attending is generally defined as orienting yourself to the other person and being aware of their nonverbal cues. This includes maintaining eye contact, displaying a relaxed posture, and using just natural gestures as a whole. Paraphrasing is the general idea of restating the other person's message in a simpler, more understandable form. Reflecting is similar to paraphrasing, however, it involves expressing what is not said, and this can be shown in 3 different scenarios. Scenario 1 involves reflecting content, which is the most similar to paraphrasing. It involves expressing the content of what was said in a fresh or different words. So for example, if you're having a conflict with a coworker or classmate and they come up to you and say, his comments really hurt me, a way to demonstrate reflecting content would be you as a listener to respond with, it really upsets you. Kind of just let them know, yes, I completely agree, you're very upset. Kind of just reiterating what they said to you, kind of making sure, that you guys are on the same page, that you are understanding and listening to what they're saying. Scenario 2 involves reflecting feelings. This is when the listener restates essential feelings, which may or may not have been verbalized directly, They also could have been verbalized indirectly by the other person. So same thing, if you're in a conflict with a coworker, classmate, and they come up to you and they're like, I just don't understand. He keeps telling me different things. A direct approach for this be like, I completely understand, like you're very confused by his actions. Or as a listener, you can take an indirect approach and be like, I can obviously tell you're very frustrated about this situation. Like, what can you do to fix it? And kind of just like the other scenario, you're just reiterating that you're understanding, you know how they're feeling, you're really taking in everything they're saying and giving them like your full attention. Scenario 3 involves reflecting experience. This is the concept of expressing what you see, including any miscommunication between words, emotions, or actions. So, for example, same thing, if a coworker, classmate comes up to you and they're crying, like, you know what, it's not really important, like, I'm just having a bad day. Well, as a listener, you could be like, you know, you say it's not important, but obviously you're crying, so there's something there, you are upset, like, let's talk about it, like, how are you feeling? So really these all three scenarios, like I mentioned earlier, really just give focus on that you are giving the other person that either you're in a conflict with or you're trying to solve a conflict with someone else. Kind of like Abby was saying, as like a mediator, it can work with this technique as well, that you are just listening, giving them their full undivided attention, and you are just really kind of reflecting back to them what you see in what they're saying. The last component of active listening is clarifying. This is really just asking for confirmation on what you heard. So an example of this could be like, oh, Abby, you seem angry. Is that the case? Or Caitlin, like, you seem frustrated. Is that correct? Just kind of making sure, again, like you're on the same page. So that way you just really know exactly what they're feeling. There's no miscommunication or anything. By implementing the above verbal and nonverbal techniques into future conversations, you can work towards developing stronger relationships and retaining more information from your interactions as a whole, which is really important in problem solving. Really active listening and just making sure you really know the other person, like, and how they're feeling, can really solve a lot of problems in its own. Active listening takes practice to improve and maintain, kind of like I mentioned before. It really just, it's not something you can just do. You have to really focus and really like figure out what Abby's trying to tell me, so I can just see her side of the story. The more you use these techniques that we all mentioned, the more natural they'll feel, especially when dealing with conflicts such as problem solving.